What does it all mean?
This is where the archaeology has been found.
Oh, hi, how are you? Look at that.
I need a planter.
A shrine to a belly button.
This is a rock skull? Look at that.
No one gets into this place. No one.
Nice. Whoa, don't take me too far.
Now that's naked archaeology.
Paris, New York, Hollywood, inspiration for the fashion designer.
The history of fashion has gone through so many changes. What was a fad yesterday
Wouldn't you like to look this cool on a summer day?
is old hat today. From togas to tie-dyes, bow ties to neckties, satin and spandex to nylon and rayon.
That makes life more luxurious.
We've had it all. But being the naked archaeologist, I'm on a hunt to find out what fashion looked like in biblical times.
Look at this. Clothes with coins. But is it biblical fashion? I wouldn't put my money on it.
Did they follow fads like we do today?
What do you think? Biblical clothes?
What fabrics did they have to work with? Did they have dyes?
That brighten up our lives and the clothes we wear.
Did colors and patterns have meaning? How did class and wealth determine what they wore? And then there's the most famous piece of biblical clothing, Joseph's multicolored coat. What material was it made from? How was it colored? Can we really find out how a coat that dates back 4,000 years was made? I'm on a quest to find out.
You're from that movie?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Fortunately, I've bumped into some stylish young fans of mine. Maybe they can help me on my quest to find biblical clothes and perhaps even Joseph's multicolored coat.
So do you think there were
Just like
fashion victims even then?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Human nature is to have fashion. We need to dress ourselves nicely.
What kind of materials do you think they used?
Cotton.
Cotton?
Linen.
Linen?
The skin of the camel?
Camel skin?
Yeah.
Like you can't wear your car, but in the old days, you
Yeah.
rode your camel, and when the camel gave out,
Yeah. Moses, all our leaders were shepherds. They probably used the wool. I'm wearing wool, and it's really nice.
So what about color?
Depending on the status of the person.
Color, you think, meant status?
Yeah. The more money you had, the more dye you could afford. So
Oh, you're very right. Joseph, he had a multicolored coat. Now, do you think they dyed it, or do you think they just had multicolored sheep?
definitely dyed. I'm gonna go with the multicolored sheep.
You're gonna go with the multicolored sheep?
It's possible, I guess. I don't know.
Many biblical scholars have speculated on what Joseph's coat may have looked like. Could it have been made from camel skin? Was it striped or plaid or even spotted? Well, what do we learn from the Bible? In the book of Genesis, we learn that Jacob had 12 sons, but his favorite is Joseph.
Father, Joseph.
To show his love for Joseph, Jacob gives him a beautiful coat. The lovely coat Jacob sews also sows the seed of jealousy within his brothers, who sell him into slavery for 20 pieces of silver.
Take him away!
His luck worsens when he's locked in an Egyptian prison. But like his father, others also fall for Joseph. And eventually, he becomes the chief advisor to the Egyptian pharaoh. And all this started with a coat. Does the Bible give us any clues as to what kind of fabric this coat was made from? We know that Jacob was a shepherd, so it would make sense that the coat would have been made from the wool of a sheep. And in Genesis 30, we discover that he raised a rare breed of sheep. They were spotted.
The most famous garment in biblical history, Joseph's multicolored coat. Was it dyed, or was it made from naturally spotted wool? I'm looking for that rare breed of Jacob sheep, naturally spotted. And I've come here to the zoo to find Jacob's sheep. And here they are, the rare breed of biblical sheep, Jacob's sheep. Brr, brr. Daddy has the good stuff. Look at this. Come on. Hey. Come on over there. Go over there. Go over there. Move your spotted asses. Here. Come over here, guys. So here's the story. Jacob runs away to his uncle. Uncle is named Laban. Laban is not a nice guy. His name means white. He's got a lot of white sheep. He exploits poor Jacob. Finally, Jacob says, I'm not getting paid enough. You're ripping me off. Laban says, you know what? You can keep all the spotted sheep. There weren't very many. All the sheep are white. They were like this white guy. Suddenly, all the sheep go spotted.
But how did Jacob's sheep get their spots? Artificial selection, choosing to breed select parents to get the desired spotted sheep. And Jacob's biological experiment is the first in recorded history. Who would have thought that Jacob was a pioneer in animal eugenics? Heck, maybe he even bred a few plaid and paisley sheep as well.
So here's the question. Did they dye the wool, or did Jacob have so many spotted sheep that he just took what was natural, no dyeing, and gave him the best of the spots? Makes sense. He had lots of spotted sheep. He made his son a special coat. It was a coat of multi-spots. Okay, here. I'm developing a relationship with the sheep.
But I've also heard that some biblical scholars believe Joseph's coat may not have been colored at all. One of those scholars is Professor Yair Zakovich.
Let's talk about Joseph and his fashion sense. What's that story all about?
It's a story about Jacob's love of his beloved son, Joseph. So he gives him a special garment, which is usually translated as the coat of many colors, but actually it should be better translated as a sleeved tunic, meaning a tunic that reaches the extremities, the ankles and the wrists.
What's the Hebrew word for that?
The word in Hebrew is eketonet pasi. Through biblical Aramaic, we know that pas yada is actually the hand. So it's a tunic that reaches the wrist, the hand, and also the ankle.
So in the original Hebrew, it doesn't talk about many colors?
No, not at all.
Did Joseph really receive a long-sleeved tunic, and not, as is commonly translated, a multicolored coat? Unfortunately, the less common words in the original Hebrew Bible are more difficult to interpret. The rare word pasim has borne multiple interpretations, including colorful, long-sleeved, striped, embroidered, and even with pictures. The word may even reflect the material used, whether fine wool or silk.
Even if I pretend to understand the word ketonet pasim, I must admit that, well, I have to use, biblical Aramaic in order to interpret it. It's not so very clear that I'm right in the way I interpret the word. This word, ketonet pasim, really, people didn't know what to do with it.
So we cannot know for sure from the biblical text what Joseph's coat looked like, but maybe archaeology can help us. We know Joseph was sold to the Egyptians. Maybe our answer lies there. I've been on a quest to find out what the coat that Jacob gave his son Joseph looked like in the famous biblical story. The most common interpretation is that it was a multicolored striped coat. But on my journey, I've discovered that Jacob bred spotted sheep. Instead of being striped, could the coat have been made from these spotted sheep? Even more puzzling, biblical scholar Yair Zakovich believes the original Hebrew Bible may have described the coat as long-sleeved, which was later misinterpreted as multicolored. Maybe archaeology can help us unlock this mystery. In the biblical story, after receiving his coat, Joseph is sold into slavery in Egypt by his jealous brothers. So I've come here and traveled down the Nile to a place called Beni Hassan. Here we discover an amazing group of tombs whose walls are covered with elaborate paintings. Here we also discover what look like Israelite traders. Traveling to faraway Egypt, these Israelites would have worn their finest clothes, just as the coat Jacob would have given his son. And what do these paintings show? Clothes that are colorfully patterned and striped. Additionally, these paintings are 4,000 years old, dating to the same time as the story of Joseph. These may be the best illustrations of what Joseph's coat actually looked like. But how were these vibrant clothes dyed? To answer this question, I need to find a chemist who understands how clothes were dyed in ancient days. And I know just the guy.
Come out of the closet, Zvi.
Zvi Koren.
Hello.
An expert in the chemical makeup of biblical clothes and how they were dyed. Zvi can tell with exact precision what dyes were used to color clothes in ancient days. Maybe here I can find out what colors were available 4,000 years ago when Jacob would have dyed Joseph's coat.
You're like a bit of a sleuth. You figure out what biblical people wore and what colors. How do you do that, and what have you figured out?
We take an ancient fabric and we extract from a very small piece the colors that are on it. And we get a chemical fingerprint of these particular colors. We look all over the world for various plants. When you get a match, you know that this plant was used for these colors.
Where exactly did the dyeing start?
Dyeing itself started all over the world.
So the ancients all over the world used dye.
The ancients all over the world used dyes, and you realize that the ancient dyer was an incredible chemist. They knew which plant gave you red colors. They knew how to mix colors to give you different shades. They knew from various plants to use the flowers. Other plants, they knew the leaves would work. And other plants, it's the roots. Also, the Talmud describes various plants that were used.
All right, so you got plastic bags full of stuff here. That looks like something you smoke.
Actually, you don't smoke it. These are the roots of a certain plant called madder. And this particular plant can give you wonderful shades from pink to red to brick orange and even purplish colors. Take a look at the beautiful red on the inside. You put it into hot water, and then the red color is extracted, and then you can do the dyeing of a textile with that.
This is beautiful. And you can see the red at the sides. Look, it's coming right off on my finger.
And this is indigo. They call it istis or isatis. This is a natural indigo from the plant that is known as the indigo plant. And it describes also this one, and this dye stuff is safflower. And it's amazing that both of these different colors, a yellow one and a pink one, originate from the same dye stuff.
So there we have it, the three primary colors which would have created all the colors Jacob needed to dye Joseph's coat. They grew wild in the fields where Joseph tended sheep. So Jacob had everything required to make a coat of many colors, the sheep for the wool and the plants for the dyes. But how exactly did he turn sheep's clothing into Joseph's coat? It's time to pull up my sleeves and get my hands dirty, because I'm going to learn how clothes were actually made in biblical times. In my quest to find out what Joseph's coat actually looked like, I need to learn how clothes were made back in biblical times. So I've come to the biblical landscape reserve, Neot Kedumim, where they still make clothes the way they were made thousands of years ago. I've come here to try my hand at biblical clothes making. I've never sheared a sheep before, but I promised my guide, Corey Morag, no animals would be hurt in the making of this show.
I don't want to hurt your sheep. I'm feeling quite sheepish about this. Look at that, eh?
I've kept my word. The sheep is safe. And I've got the wool I need. But given that sheep don't take regular showers, this wool needs to be cleaned, which is done by boiling it in kettles.
Look at that. Whoa! Sorry. As I stand here, I'm beginning to smell a not so pleasant odor coming from these kettles.
It's not pleasant at all. Cleaning wool is a very smelly process. Women weren't supposed to be involved in this process so that they don't smell too bad.
And I can understand why. Glad that's over. It's time to comb the wool.
Comb the hair and untwine it. Kind of when you comb your own hair and open up all the knots. It's a woman's job to take care of the wool and have the wool prepared for weaving.
Traditionally, you're saying it's always been women?
Yes. She would also take care of her kids and take care of the fields.
Do it all.
Yeah.
Just
do it
like
all.
today.
Yeah.
Women still do it all, right?
Yes.
You want to try again?
Okay, I'll try. I want to show that I'm so comfortable with my own masculinity that I can do this woman's work. How do I do this?
Other way. You gotta pull on it.
Show me?
Wait.
Like there?
Yeah.
Oh.
Not wanting to hog the limelight, I let these talented women take on the next step, spinning the wool into yarn.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. The idea is to twine all together, and then it just ties together into a thread.
That's what I'm used to seeing in a ball of wool.
And the last step, dyeing the wool. Here's where my talents as an artist can really shine.
Look at that. That's so great. And what's this?
In here, we have pomegranates that are boiling. Here we're gonna make brown dye for the wool, and this is madder.
Madder, which we now know was used to make red dyes.
What do we got over there?
Satis.
Isatis, which we discovered creates a blue pigment.
Let me try to put a little of it in the pesto. Oh, and I feel like singing in Italian.
Starting to get blue.
Hey, yeah, look at that. We're actually making dyes the way they used to make in biblical times, 2,000 years ago.
Yep.
How do you feel about that?
It's amazing.
It is amazing, isn't it?
All the stuff that you need just grows around you.
I guess you'd feel different about wearing clothes that you actually dyed.
It's worth the labor. If you make something out of the fabric that you made, it's pretty amazing.
When you read the story about Jacob giving a multicolored coat to Joseph, to make one of those coats would have been a tremendous investment. What resonates with you?
It's a lot of love going into these things. It's about what you put into what you do and what you wear and what you use.
I can now see the amount of love that went into making biblical clothes, and particularly Joseph's colorful coat. But I want to see real clothes from biblical times. Maybe even Joseph's coat. On my quest to find out what Joseph's multicolored coat looked like, I've discovered it could have been spotted, striped, possibly not even dyed at all. But if I'm going to crack this mystery, there's one place I need to visit: the Israel Antiquities Authority's Textile Department. I feel like a child in a candy shop in here.
I love this kind of place. I could live here. I would never go home.
These are the storerooms of the material which arrive from the excavations.
When textiles are found, they're brought here?
Yes, they're brought here because
To
we
you?
have... Yes.
You're the boss.
Yeah, I'm the boss, yes.
Meeting with Orit Shamir, I'm hoping to see if any clothes from biblical times have lasted all this time. Maybe she can even shed light on what Joseph's coat may have looked like.
Where do you keep the
Now,
textile?
we keep them in special conditions in the storeroom, special humidity and special light.
Oh, wow. Are these textiles?
Yes, we have here thousands of textiles dated from 6,000 years ago and later. What is amazing, the dyes were preserved. All the textiles from Israel were found at the sites which are very dry.
Incredible. Textiles dating back 6,000 years. Boxes and boxes of them preserved by the dry weather.
What have we got here in this secret box?
Let me show you. Please don't touch because it is very fragile.
This looks brand new.
Yes, but they are 2,000 years.
2,000 years old.
Yes, they dyed the fibers in very good quality, so because of this, it was kept for 2,000 years. If we take this example, they dyed it with indigo and madder, and they mixed them together.
It gives you this kind of reddish, purplish.
Yes.
Look, it matches what you're wearing today.
Oh, thank you, yes. I like this color.
Amazing. Ancient yarn that looks brand new. But Orit has something even more exciting to show me.
This piece is part of a pillow, which was found at the Cave of the Letters.
A pillowcase.
Yes.
How old is this?
This textile is made 2,000 years ago.
This
It
is
was
2,000
found-
years
yes.
old? If I saw something this good in a cave, I would think it's modern. It would never occur to me that this could be 1,800 years old. So if we could go back in time through a time machine 4,000 years ago and meet Joseph, Would you expect that the garment that he would be wearing look something like this?
Probably yes. It is made of wool and also decorated with very colored stripes.
So when the Bible talks about the coat of many colors, you're saying it's made of similar material, similar design.
Yes, exactly. We found wool textiles from the time of Joseph. So we know wool was here at this period.
Why not cotton?
Cotton was not used during the period of Joseph in the land of Israel. So because of this, we can assume it was made of wool. And we know that during this period of the Middle Bronze, they used wool.
They used wool.
Probably they used also the same colors because they knew how to produce the red dye and also the blue dye.
When the Bible is talking about Joseph's coat, is it talking about a striped garment or is it talking about a long-sleeved garment?
I think it is talk about stripes because the brothers of Joseph, when they saw it, I think they were amazed from the colorful of the garment, from the stripes.
They wouldn't have been jealous just because he had a long sleeve.
Yes, probably. In everyday life, they used textiles which are undyed because dyeing the textiles is a long process and very expensive.
So if all there was to it is their little brother got a long sleeve,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have been very excited.
Yeah, probably.
Well, there you go, folks. We went on a mission to find Joseph's coat, and we found it. I never thought when we went searching for Joseph's coat of many colors that we would get within 2,000 years of the real thing.
So we've come to the end of our journey, having found what Joseph's multicolored coat probably looked like.